So, Terminator Dark Fate. Was it good? Was it bad? Well, I'll tell you right now in the spoiler room. Hello and welcome to the first installment of the Spoiler Room podcast. I'm your host, Ryan David Rogers. Now, this is a little something I'm going to be kind of trying out because on my most recent episode of This, That, and All Things Cinema, I put out kind of a call saying, hey, if you're interested in me doing a spoiler-filled discussion about Terminator Dark Fate, let me know, and I've actually got some response. So, well, here I am. I went to see Terminator Dark Fate, and happy to report, it's a lot better than I expected. I mean, you couldn't go as bad as Terminator Genesis did. I mean, theoretically you could, but they didn't. Would I say it's like as good as the first two Terminator films? No, I wouldn't. I'd say it's kind of like more in the upper mid, close, somewhere between. I'd say it's decent, and that's pretty much the whole spoiler-free thoughts on Terminator Dark Fate. And if from here on out, it's going to be talking about spoilers, going into certain details, and all that. So if you don't want to be spoiled by me talking about Terminator Dark Fate, then you shouldn't have clicked on this in the first place. It is honestly safe to say this was meant to be a soft reboot of the Terminator franchise, kind of in the same vein as Star Wars The Force Awakens is a soft reboot of the whole galaxy far, far away. Because you have a new threat that's not Skynet. You have this group called Legion that's doing the same thing as Skynet pretty much, sending Terminators back in time to try to kill the leader of the Resistance. In this case, it being a girl named Danny. And for a good part of the film, Sarah Connor is in this. She does kind of jump to the conclusion that, oh, Danny must give birth to someone who becomes the head of the Resistance and blah blah blah. Part of me kind of felt like a bit of an obvious bait switch because of the whole she jumped to conclusion kind of thing. I mean, if it turned out that what she guessed was true, I think it was one of those situations where it's like, no matter what the conclusion was to that, whether it be Danny or Danny's offspring, it wouldn't have been that much of a surprise because, well, they were targeting her. Another thing that didn't come as much of a surprise was the return of the T-800 played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that's mainly because, well, he was in a lot of the promotional material for Terminator Dark Fate. It would have been kind of cool if there was a bit of an oh shit moment where, let's say Arnold wasn't featured in any of the promotional material. As far as you're aware, it's just Sarah Connor, Grace, and Danny. That scene at the opening scene where the T-800, obviously D.A. Schwarzenegger, kills John Connor. You kind of assume, like, maybe that might be the only scene that the T-800's in. And yeah, John Connor, he does appear as a kid, like, kind of around the same age as he was during the events of Terminator 2, and taken out with 2 gun blasts with Sarah being just completely devastated. I felt like if they didn't put in the kind of reveal moment where the aged T-800 answers the door and is just all like, that is a cool moment, just seeing Sarah's reaction. I feel like it would have had more of an impact if Arnold wasn't included in the promotional material at all. Not in the trailers, not in the poster. There's like, the theater I went to had this huge cardboard standout for Terminator Dark Fate, and T-800, Arnold Schwarzenegger, was prominently there along with Sarah Connor and Grace. Speaking of Grace, I kind of felt like there was some aspects of her kind of backstory and her who she is that kind of made me go, okay. First off, Grace is not fully human. She does have these cybernetic enhancements due to getting critically injured when she was fighting the Terminators in her timeline. And some of the kind of Terminators, like the way they approached the Terminators, it actually looked pretty cool. I mean, yeah, it was probably just all CG. When the Terminators started doing a reenactment of storming Normandy Beach, and it was just like the base forms holding laser guns going pew 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 pew, that was pretty cool. Where it got ridiculous, if you ask me, this goes back into Grace's kind of backstory. It has to do with how so cybernetically, technologically advanced these Terminators have gotten that some of them are just like sprouting like nanomachine tentacles and just using it to stab everyone while keeping base form. And I just looked at it and I was like, okay, robots shaped like people firing laser guns. Okay. Drones with massive explosives. Okay. But some of the futuristic aircrafts and just some of the designs for the Terminators, at that point I was like, they really got to wipe out that Legion timeline, because that just looks like they're really trying to up Skynet. Like Grace has no idea what the hell Skynet is, and that says a lot. That's actually a good thing, because it's like John and Sarah Connor succeeded in eliminating Skynet thanks to what they did in T2. One of the other things that kind of got ridiculous for me was there's this whole sequence that's like mid-air with these military jumbo jets, where Rev 9, which is these basically, way I could best describe Rev 9 is if they took the idea of the T-1000 and made it so he could basically make one doppelganger of himself. Well, it's just like one's a full liquid form and one is a skeleton, and they can kind of work in unison with each other. I gotta admit, I actually kind of like that idea. I mean, it's definitely a good way to kind of up the ante and continue to make things feel more threatening, because with what Sarah's dealt with, she's dealt with T-800s and T-1000 and who knows what other kinds of Terminators that she has dealt with in between the events of Terminator 2 and Dark Fate. So it would definitely make it so she's not like, I know how to beat these, I'm just going to beat these, if that makes any sense. What I also found to be pretty interesting was the whole thing with the T-800, who basically underdone the persona of Carl, because after he successfully killed John Connor, it's just like, okay, now what? I wonder if Skynet ever thought about that, to be honest with you. It's like, okay, we succeeded in killing John Connor in the past. Now what? Like, I know the idea is just so that the resistance doesn't form and that Legion or Skynet or whoever the next big machine threat that we humans ended up making ends up being. In a way, it definitely does show that they were created by humans, because a lot of times humans just come up with ridiculous plans and not think about what happens next. I have to say, overall, Terminator Dark Fate, I'd say it's, if they decide not to make any more Terminator films after this one, it's pretty a good note to end on. It teases at the idea that they could do more, because the threat of Legion is still out there, but Danny comes out of this ready to fight. Much like how in the original Terminator, the threat of Skynet was still there, but Sarah Connor walked out of that with the will to fight. In a way, it feels very thematic. Start the franchise off with a character barely surviving getting killed by a killer robot and coming out of it a much stronger person. End the franchise with someone that almost gets killed by a robot and comes out of it stronger. And I'm not just saying that they should end it on a high note because apparently it's doing so poorly at the box office, but that might have something to do with it. So, hey, at least if you ask me, Tim Miller, the director of Dark Fate, it's not just like it was a fluke with him directing Deadpool. That's what I'm getting at. So I guess that pretty much it on my thoughts of Terminator Dark Fate. If this is something you kind of want me to do more regularly with like upcoming blockbuster films, you know what? Just let me know and I might do another one of these. And so, yeah, I guess that's it. So thank you so much for listening or watching. If you're viewing this on YouTube or if you're just listening to this whenever I get around to actually uploading these podcasts to podcast hosting sites. Anyway, thank you so much. My name is Ryan, and I'm out. Peace.